Decorating Center. Good morning. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Art Lewis Show. We're going to talk about the Bay Area Women's Club this morning, Women's Center this morning, and an event they have coming up. First of all, from the Women's Center, we say good morning to Lindsay Richardson. Lindsay, good morning.
Good morning, Art. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us. I do want to check your sanity because you've partnered up with this guy in the studio with me here, but that's okay. And we say good morning to the one and the only Matt Fallon.
Good morning, Art. How are you?
I'm good, Matt. How are you?
It's always great to be here.
Anyway, the Bay Area Women's Center. Let's start with an overview and a little history of the center.
The Bay Area Women's Center is celebrating 50 years this year.
Has it been that long?
It has.
Oh, that's scary.
It's crazy, and the more we're digging into it, the more we're learning and getting really excited about all that we've accomplished over 50 years. And we've been serving Bay County and Aranet County in all that time. Thousands of survivors have come to us for safety and support.
I was going to just ask, what's the mission of the Women's Center?
Our mission broadly is to eliminate domestic violence and sexual assault in our community. We want to put ourselves out of a job. We don't want to exist anymore.
Is it the same type of organization as the Underground Railroad or things of that nature?
Yep. Underground Railroad and Saginaw and Shelter House and Midland are our sister agencies.
Okay.
So we support survivors with a lot of the same services.
50 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it's Bay Aranac. Was it always Bay and Aranac?
It started as just Bay County and then grew into Aranet County at some point in the history. I've been piecing together a timeline. Everybody's got different memories of where we started and what buildings we've been in, and we're trying to figure that all out as we're celebrating this year.
And what brought you to the point where you felt you needed to attach yourself to the guy to your right?
He's got connections, and he's been a longtime supporter of the Women's Center, actually. He's engaged with us through our men's campaign this year as our honorary chair, and he's been a donor since the men's campaign started, which is back in, I think, 2013, I think is when the campaign started.
What drew you to the center, Matt?
So it's really easy. I was simply asked by someone. I was in Rotary.
Isn't that funny how that works?
It doesn't take much, honest to God. I was with a fellow Rotarian, and they were talking about the campaign. And it stuck with me, and it stuck with me ever since. They basically said, if you live in this community, the Bay Area Women's Center is one of the organizations that you need support every year. And they said they're starting this men's campaign because sometimes people think about sexual assault and domestic abuse and think of it only directed towards women and children. But that's actually not the case. Believe it or not, there are a lot of men who are victims as well. But for me, it's more important that men stand up and protect all of our vulnerable people in this community. And, I looked, and I'll be completely honest, they have a list of names on the website, and they put it out in the newspaper every year when they do this. And I thought to myself, how can my name not be on there to support an organization like the Bay Area Women's Center?
It's a supporters list.
It's a supporters list.
I wondered where you were going. What
Talking about. Totally a supporters list. And I've just, honest to God, felt a responsibility that, like, every year, that's just one of those check marks I have to do. And I believe, different people have different capacity, Art, but we ask men to contribute at least $100. But this year we're looking to add a 50 to it. So 150, 250, 350 to celebrate that 50th year. But for me, $100 a year to support an organization like that, that's just a no-brainer and something that I just feel responsible to do as a citizen in my community.
And, we must have to point this out about Matt. I've known him for quite a while. He's not afraid to ask for money because he made a career out of it for a while on the political scene in Washington. And you were a fundraiser in the political world, which is not an easy task, is it?
It was a fascinating career. And it kind of helped me out for some of the work that I do here in partnership with the station now. Because I kind of view myself as that person. I think you feel the same way, Art. I'm not an expert on many things. There are not many things I'm an expert on. But I know a little bit about a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you get that from the fundraising world. And that's definitely one of those things. You work for a U.S. senator, and they sit on armed services and commerce. And the senator was there in 2001 and 2 during 9/11. And think about that, armed services and commerce. I knew everyone who was making every missile, every bomb, every bullet for a 1.5 year period. I knew every thing that you possibly could about just the companies that were involved in government contracting. And so historically, the best way to fundraise is to educate yourself on those that have the funds. And so it's
who do I
often,
ask?
yeah, exactly. And how much do I ask for, right? There's nothing worse than asking someone who can write a massive check for $100. So it's allowed me to learn a lot about a lot of different, aspects and issues throughout the years.
Just out of curiosity, without getting into the weeds, just one time I'm going to ask this question. Have your political views changed over the years? I know who you raised money for.
So I will tell you, just in general, I've become tired with partisan politics. I don't care if it's a D or an R.
Okay.
The far wings of each party just make everyone go too far. So the far left, the far right, they both are infuriating. I feel like most of us sit in the middle, but the way the system's currently designed, the parties have control because you have to get through that primary process. So I think I've shifted a little bit more independent than I have partisan.
Save it, because at some point in time, you and I are going to sit down and do a show on this.
I think we'd have something to talk about for a few minutes.
I think we might have a few things to talk about, but I want to go back to the Bay Area Women's Center. Fundraising is obviously important to any nonprofit. And you have a wild game dinner coming up, is that what I understand?
Mm-hmm. It's our Wildly Gourmet dinner.
A Wildly Gourmet dinner.
Yes. We transitioned from Wild Game a couple years ago, but this year we are bringing it a touch back. Venison is part of our entree this year, so we're excited to have that. And this is our
when and where? Let's start with.
It's April 8th on Tuesday at the Doubletree in downtown Bay City, and it starts at 5:30. There's a 5-course meal. We'll have wine served by our lovely volunteers all evening long, and there's auctions, raffles, a program, and we're doing a special tribute to our founders for our 50th anniversary.
And the cost?
It's $75 per person, or you can buy a reserved table of 10 for $650, so save $10 a ticket there.
And tickets are available where?
They're available online. You can go to our website, bawc-mi.org/dinner, and that'll take you right to the page. You can see the menu and all the fun things that are happening with the event this year.
So talk about the menu.
The menu
other than venison.
is... Well, there's more than just venison with the entree. Yeah, it's quite a menu this year. So we gather a team of chefs from the community, and these chefs in particular have been involved with us for several years. But we've got 2 appetizers being served during cocktail hour. We've got braised chicken legs with River Rock special sauce. I have no idea what's in that recipe or what that sauce is going to taste like. But that's coming from Chef Earl Bovia and as well as Greg Kimbrew from the River Rock. Smoked fish dip with Old Bay seasoned chips coming from Chef Dan at Real Seafood Company. And then our entree is an entree duet, so there's 2 meats on there. We have a chicken thigh with roasted rosemary honey carrots and venison medallions with delicata squash and apple slaw. And Chef Amberlyn Hales of My Table is bringing that to us. I don't know what delicata squash is, maybe just small squash, but it sounds great. I'm excited to try it. And then our dessert, the chefs at the Doubletree kicked it up. They said, we have to really meet that entree. So they're doing a chocolate torte with spiced port drizzle, creme anglaise with fresh raspberries and whipped cream. And that's Brandon Kirkhow and Matt Avram from the Riverfront Grill at Doubletree.
It's interesting how you draw all those chefs in from various places to do this.
They're like Matt. Honestly, they're people, we ask them to be a part of it, and no hesitation whatsoever. They want to support the Women's Center. And they actually support this event and our Power of the Purse event, too. So these chefs have been cornerstones of our event for a long time, and they're so talented that it's a no-brainer to ask them, and they support us in more ways than just through our events.
Take a break, come back with our guests as we talk about the Bay Area Women's Center.
Tax season is almost over.
All right, we're back with you here on WSGW, the Art Lewis Show. In studio with me, Lindsay Richardson from the Bay Area Women's Center. What's your role there?
I'm the Director of Development.
Director of Development.
Yep. So that's all things fundraising plus everything else that's not really direct care with our clients kind of ends up in my lap.
And other duties is assigned by supervisor.
And
Yes.
that voice belongs to Matt Falon, who is on the fundraising side of things and doing a yeoman service for the Bay Area Women's Center for many years. Let's talk about some of the services provided by BAWC. You know, what can a woman expect if she finds herself in a situation that's not a good situation and needs the help of BAWC? What's the protocols? What happens?
Our goal with our services is to meet survivors where they are and give them the support they need to get them where they want to go. So it's a hand up, not a hand out to our survivors, and the services are really all encompassing to address all of their needs. Every story, every survivor has a different circumstance. They have different needs, different safety concerns, and our services are catered especially to them. And those are for any individual whose life has been impacted by domestic violence, because it's not just women, it's not just children, men and trans individuals as well are also impacted by that. So anybody whose life has been altered because of domestic or sexual violence, they can find support and safety with us.
Do you have a shelter?
We do have a shelter on site. We have 12 bedrooms and 32 beds, and nearly always full. And full looks a little bit different.
That's the scary part.
It is. And we keep one family in each bedroom at a time so that it's a safe healing space, a comfortable space for them to go back to. And we work very closely with our partner agencies across the region, well, across the state of Michigan, honestly. If we can't find space in our shelter for someone, it's our duty, it's our job to find space for them somewhere. We have to get them safe.
Typically, somebody comes to you. How long are they with you?
If they're coming to our shelter, it's a 30-day program, and they can request extensions up to 90 days. It's a temporary space because our goal is to get them to a permanent safe space. So while they're with us, we'll work with them to secure a job, secure housing, whether that's Section 8 or through our Transitional Supportive Housing Program or through some other avenue. Some people come to us and their goal is to get out of state. They need to leave this state. They need to get somewhere that's completely safe, and we'll help them do that. We'll give them bus tickets or support them with their bus tickets and do all that we can to help them get to that next safe space for them.
How do we define a safe space?
And that's a really individual question. It's hard for me to say. But for us at the Women's Center, we've taken as many security safety measures as we can. So we've got cameras around our facility, especially outside, so that we can see who's coming and going. It's a dangerous situation for everybody, just the nature of the work that we do. A violent person could come on our property at any time. And we have those cameras to make sure that we can monitor that and make sure that nobody's getting assaulted or anything out in the parking lot. Just because an assailant comes to our property doesn't mean that violence is going to happen. But we know that there's the propensity for that to happen if they're there. So we monitor that. All of our doors are locked. We have key cards to get in, or they have to be buzzed in by staff. And like I said, those bedrooms, one family per room, so they have that safe, locked space to go to. They can keep their valuables in there. They and their children can stay in that room and know nobody's going to come in and disrupt them. And that, just knowing that the building is as secure as possible, provides safety for a person. But once they're out of our shelter, it could look, like I mentioned, going out of state. That could be safety for them. Reconnecting with family and living with their parents again for a time, that could be safety.
Is it true that in many cases the accoster stalks the victim who's left?
And that is common. That does happen. When an individual is leaving a violent relationship, that is the most dangerous time. You'd think that at that point, the fact that they're getting out, they're going to find safety now. That's not the case, because the assailant, they've lost power and control at that point. And domestic and sexual violence stem from a desire to have power and control over another person. So when they're leaving, that assailant's going to do everything that they can to gain that power and that control back. So that might mean stalking. That might mean coming to our facility to find them. But that doesn't mean they're going to be outright violent, because they also know that manipulators to get what they want. So if an assailant's coming to our front desk asking about somebody, they're going to turn on the charm because they want to learn the answers, and they know that if they're charming, people are more likely to trust them and give them the information that they want.
So for all the years the Bay Area Women's Center's been around 50 years, but we've certainly had this issue longer than that. With all of the shelters and all of the information and the public awareness, have we seen a decrease in violence against particularly women and children?
A decrease in violence isn't easy to measure, but it's not also indicative of less violence happening. So the numbers that we're working from, the data that we tend to work from, is reported cases to police. So when people engage law enforcement for domestic violence or sexual assault, those are often the numbers that we use to state X many people have been assaulted this year. A lot of survivors aren't engaging law enforcement in their situation. That can make the situation more difficult for them if they involve law enforcement.
All right, so let's use a different form of measurement. Demands on your services, up or down?
Again, down is not indicative of less violence happening, because up could mean more people are aware of us and more people are requesting support. We've seen pretty steady numbers throughout our history, and we see them grow over time because we're better at telling our story. We're better at getting out in the community and letting people know that we exist. And we're better about educating the community about what domestic violence is. It's not all bruises and broken bones. It's emotional violence. It's mental violence. It's financial. And those things we don't necessarily see. And those are very personal experiences that a lot of people don't identify as domestic violence, but certainly qualify a person to receive our support and services.
Is it one of those it can't happen to me situations, and then all of a sudden you find out it is happening to you?
Yes, absolutely. And that's by design. The assailant, wanting that power and control, will manipulate a person and do love bombing. So at the very beginning, love bombing. Yes. Everything is great and wonderful and the best you could ever imagine it to be in this relationship. There's flowers every weekend. There's extravagant trips, and he loves me so much. She loves me so much. I could never imagine a life without them. And then slowly over time, that turns into, you're not worth anybody else's love. I'm the only person who could ever love you. You are not valued by your family members. We have to take you away from your family. You don't deserve the money that you're bringing in from your job. Let me take care of that. I can manage it better. And slowly a person chips away at someone's self-esteem and self-worth until you don't realize that it's happened, especially if you've been isolated from friends and family who might help open your eyes to what's happening.
The interesting thing about that is that some of the things you just described can be beneficial as opposed to negative. Take you away from your family, for example. When I married my wife in Pennsylvania, it was now almost 60 years ago. She passed away a couple of years ago. She was not in a great family situation, couldn't wait to leave. Taking her away was the right thing to do and worked well for us and actually helped reconcile a lot of things. It all depends on the situation, doesn't it?
But I'm sure
really
you guys
individual.
talked about it, right? You had communication about that.
We talked
yeah,
a lot
you weren't
about
just
it.
making that decision for
No, I
her
didn't grab
on
her
your
by
own.
the arm and say, we're leaving. No,
Yeah.
I didn't. No.
And that's kind of the big distinction there is, yes, it can be a good thing, but that's because there's mutual respect for each other and that open conversation about what's best for the two of you together, not just what that individual wants to accomplish as the assailant.
Yeah, because I live by my great and late father's advice, which was, it's not the problem, it's how you solve it. And that was his universal device, constantly telling me that. It's not the problem, it's how you solve it. There are good ways to do it, and there are ways that are not so good to do it.
And that's what we do at the Women's Center. We try to help people solve their problems, and all of our services and our staff members are highly trained to address all of those needs with compassion, empathy, and safety being paramount.
Take a break, come back, and we're chatting with Lindsay Richardson, who is the Director of Development for the Bay Area Women's Center, and Matt Fallon, who has taken on the responsibility of Well, I was going to say chief cook, but I wouldn't want to eat it. So he's a fundraiser, folks. We'll be back with all of them after these notes.
Augusta National.
And WSGW Online are sponsored by Stormmaster Exteriors, your ultimate solution for windows, roofing, and exterior services.
Back with you here on the Art Lewis Show. We're talking to Lindsay Richardson. She is the Director of Development for the Bay Area Women's Center. Matt Fallon is a donor and fundraiser for the center. So, Matt, when you go out and talk to your friends, acquaintances, colleagues, and all of those folks, why should they give to the Bay Area Women's Center?
Yes, I want to answer this kind of in two ways. And I'll go first just kind of with the big picture, which is number one, you heard from Lindsay. The services needed at the Women's Center are steady. They're not declining. And they're full almost every night. Can you imagine if a community like Bay County that serves Bay and Aranac there did not have that facility and those services? To me, that's simply unimaginable. We have to be able to take care of vulnerable people in our community, people who are victims of assault like this. And it's really our responsibility as a community to make sure that we have these services. So, number one, what I would say, and I have, I'm married, have a daughter. It's one of those things that every day when I go to bed, I'm ecstatic that it's there, and I pray that no one I know ever has to use it. I hope it's something that's never utilized by any of my loved ones. But I know that so many have to utilize that facility, and I just couldn't imagine the community without it. So, number one, it's just something that we have to take care of people. But number two, and one of the biggest reasons that I really wanted to get involved with this year, Art, is, and I want you to think about it this way. If I told you that we're going to do something in Saginaw, we kind of have a group of people right now in Saginaw that can do anything. Sam and Pete Shaheen and Dick Garber and Paul Furlow. And these are kind of, folks that are in the prime of their careers. And these are folks that give back heavily to our community. In Bay County, we had a lot of folks like that through the years. Paul Rowley, Don Monaster, Fritz Horak. And the one thing that I noticed, though, is kind of the generation before us, they carried our community for a very long time. I mean, they were there for everything, but these are gentlemen and women who are a little bit older now and not as actively involved, and they're in retirement. And I looked at those lists, and I said to Lindsay and Jeremy, their executive director, I said, we are missing 30 to 60-year-olds basically on that list. And there's a ton that are there, but we're missing the next generation.
Here's the thing about that, though. Let me express this and see how you react to it. I'm going to use board of directors as an example. When I came here in the 70s and I started serving on boards, I'd see you on the board I sat on. And when my term was up and I went to a different board, gee, I'd see you on my other board. And then I'd see you on the next board. It was like musical chairs. It was the same community people on all these boards. And then along came the leadership programs. Saginaw Leadership, Latino, Black, Bay had a leadership. You have now the regional leadership. And that brought a whole new bunch of 30-somethings into the programs. And one of the things they learned in leadership was to be active in the community. And now all of a sudden you had a whole bunch of new, younger faces on these boards. I'm not sure that translated into the giving segment, if you know what I mean.
I 100% know what you mean.
The philanthropy service went, but the philanthropy didn't seem to keep up with it. Now, they're in their 30s. Maybe they're not in the financial positions of the folks you talked about. But still, I just didn't see the philanthropy part of it moving ahead.
No, and that's why I really want to get involved, because it's amazing to me how fast 10 years goes by.
Yeah.
And that person who's 35 and now 45, and they were the beginning realtor, are now selling millions of dollars worth of homes a year, and they're doing quite well. I watch people advance to become partners at their firms, etc. But if you don't get them giving at a smaller level when they're in their 30s, then you can't capitalize when in their 40s and their 50s. And it goes back to how I started with the Women's Center. I was simply asked. So really my commitment in running the men's campaign as the honorary chair is not looking at the list of people that gave last year and saying, okay, I'll call all those people. Well, those people are going to be pretty good. They know why they're giving, and they're going to come back and they're going to give again. I looked at Lindsay and said, my goal is to figure out who's not on that list. And I am going to call. I'm going to email. I am going to text. I'm going to Facebook message. I'm going to speak at Rotary. I'm going to speak at the chamber event. I'm going to ask Art Lewis, when we come on the show, and ask any man who's listening to this show in Bay County right now to go to the Bay Area Women's site. Go and donate on the men's campaign. Donate your $150, $250. I don't care what the dollar amount is. If you feel that the way I do, that it's a responsibility as a citizen in our community to make sure that we have these type of organizations and services, I would say, please go. I'm asking you. If you felt like you haven't been asked, if you're listening right now, I'm asking you to be a part of our community. My good friend John Lynch from Three Rivers, I steal his line all the time, but he says something brilliant. He says, are you a citizen or do you just live here?
Yeah.
And I'm looking for citizens to step up.
And the thing about it, and I think the biggest word there is ask. How many times do you hear people say, well, nobody ever asked me?
All the time. Someone will say, hey, why weren't you at the event last night and wherever? I'm like,
Nobody
I
asked
didn't get
me.
asked. I didn't get an invitation. Yeah. I didn't know. I wasn't there. It's as simple as asking.
Yep. All right, quick break, and then we'll be back for one more segment with our guests.
Rocket Grab Plus.
With you here in studio, Lindsay Richardson, Director of Development for the Bay Area Women's Center. Matt Fallon is going to be chairing the men's fundraising side. Is that what it is? But
yeah,
you'll take it from anybody.
The men's campaign. But yeah, we don't care.
Campaign.
Yeah, the men's campaign.
So let's go back and talk a little bit about this dinner. It used to be a wild game dinner. Now it's called a wild gourmet dinner.
Mm-hmm. Because we're elevating it. We're making it more exciting for everybody. It's not just meatballs. It's gourmet food.
And so what else is going to go on there? You mentioned raffles and fun. Obviously, fundraising dinners are just that. Mm-hmm. Bring money, folks.
And yes, that's the goal. We've got a lot going on, something for everybody. We have live and silent auctions. We'll have tons of items in both of those. And raffles, we have our wagon of cheer we're bringing back. It's a nice utility fold-up wagon that will be filled with everything you need to fill your cooler throughout the entire summer. And we'll have a gift card tree raffle as well as the 50/50 too. And then we have a program during the event. We'll get up and talk a little bit. We do the Alice and Jack Wirt Embodiment of Hope